Hello and welcome. I am in the dark. Hey everyone, I'm Jason Odell, and welcome to my little webinar today here on Substack. Doing my best to multitask as I always do. It's a one-man person studio today. Um, so hopefully everybody is good. And today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite places for photography, and that's Badlands National Park in South Dakota. So hang tight for just a second, and and I'm going to get things fired up as people are joining in here, and gonna just check a few settings, but I think we are good. So let's jump over to my presentation. I'm just gonna wave hi to everybody in the chat. Hopefully some more people will join. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the Photographer's Perspective, which is my little photography newsletter here, it's where I post hopefully interesting things and lots of videos and how-tos. Hit that subscribe button and hit the like button before you punch out. Today, it's always good to be here. So let me jump over here and let's talk about photographing the Badlands. Okay. This is a shot that I got in Badlands National Park. So let's go for this. All right. So let's start. A little quick overview of Badlands National Park. It's 242, almost 243,000 acres of protected land. It's a national park in the southwest part of South Dakota. And it was originally a national monument designated in 1929. And then in 1978, it became designated a national park. And that's where we have it today. It's a great place to go, actually. The geology there is the reason to go. It is sediment and layers of sediments and volcanic ash and different kinds of mud were laid down for a really long time, starting around 70 million years ago. So if you're a geology nerd, that's the late Cretaceous period. Okay, so right towards the end of the dinosaur era, and then there were more sediments came in by rivers, floodplains, flooding, and dropping their sediment down, and that's 30 to 40 million years ago. And then erosion happened, wind, water, this whole thing, starting about 500,000 years ago. And it's been eroding ever since. But the cool part is that this erosion is uneven. It slowly reveals different layers in the rocks, and these are rocks, but they're it's almost like mud sediment kind of rocks. It's not like granite or something like that. So kind of soft rock, and it creates these wild formations out there in the Badlands. Now, in terms of human history, we can go back to Native Americans, because this was a hunting ground starting, for 11,000 years. The Native Americans would be out in the Badlands, and the Badlands gets its name uh, because the soil is so poor there. It wasn't considered good for crops or farming, or certainly grazing cattle. Like the amount of acreage you need to raise a head of cattle in the Badlands would be double or triple what you would need in a normal place like in the Midwest somewhere where the ground is more fertile. Um, American homesteaders started showing up in the 1800s, but like I said, it's low productivity soil. It's not really good soil for growing anything in. And so it just didn't do well. They made sod houses, and homesteaded out there, but it was tough going for them. And by the 1930s, when the Dust Bowl happened, most of the homesteaders just pick up and left. They just weren't having it anymore. It just wasn't feasible. So let me show you on the map where I'm talking about. This is uh, the Badlands here are in the western part of South Dakota. Nowhere near. South Dakota is a wild state because in the eastern part of South Dakota, you'll notice that the capital of South Dakota is right down here. It's like total Midwest, Iowa, Minneapolis, very much traditional Midwestern. You go more west, and it starts turning into more like what you'd see in the plains in Wyoming, eastern Wyoming and Montana. So totally different parts of the state. So we're in the western part of the state. Rapid City is the nearest major city, and the Badlands is near this little town, town of Wall. If you've ever driven across Interstate 90, which is this yellow line here, you see the signs for Wall Drugstore, free water. It's a big thing that's there. It's a huge tourist attraction. But the reason why I go to the Badlands is to take pictures. And this is one of my clients from several years ago with his tripod set up, shooting out into this just amazing landscape. It's just open, vast, and you talk about, going somewhere early in the morning. You're the only person there. There isn't anybody else there. And so it's pretty amazing just to experience this and get out into this part of the country. A lot of people just drive right past on the interstate, wouldn't really even know it's there. You can kind of see some of the hills. Now, the first time I went to the Badlands was with a group. I was participating in a photo safari, and it was in 2005. So I've been going down there now for 20 years. It's been 20 years since I first went, and it was just, we were there for like 2 nights, and it was just totally cool. It's such a unique, surreal place. I mean, it's like being on Mars or something. It's really like a science fiction novel or something like that, or movie. And there's just tons of things. If you've got your camera and your tripod, there's tons of things to shoot there as a photographer. So you've got, of course, the vistas, the big overlooks. This was a shot from that trip in 2005. Still holds up today with the moon there over these incredible rock formations. Just amazing to look at. This was from 2005. This is a spot called Panorama Point. This is right a little bit after sunset, right as the sun had gone down, and you get that soft light in the Badlands. Now, if you go in the springtime, so this was in early June, the place is just lush with prairie grass. Okay, there are challenges of going that early in the year, namely sunrise is at 5 a.m. and so it makes for some really, really unpleasant wake-up calls, if you ask me. Here's that same spot, Panorama Point, but this was from 2012, so this was now several years later. And I kept going back to the Badlands. I did one of my first solo workshops there, photo safaris there. I want to say it was like in 2011, and kept going back ever since. Here's a full moon over one of the spots that we go and shoot at. It's called Door Trail. And this is right at that magical blue hour that I like to talk about. So you've got the amazing blue, purple, magenta sky in because the sun now has been down for maybe 20 minutes, and the landscape, the contrast is less harsh. It's real uniform, almost flat lighting, and we have the moon coming up over there. It's a great place to visit when there's a full moon. And here's another scene from there. Again, this was in the early part of the summer, so June. Green grass, amazing textures, layers, all the different striations. You can see the colors in the different rock formations, the more iron containing ones that are red, and then there's some sulfur containing spots that are yellow. Full moon, this is moon set. So a different location the next morning. You go out early and you can get the moon setting, the full moon setting over the horizon. And I shot this with a telephoto lens to get that really cool compression. So you get this nice, interesting foreground of all of the amazing rock formations that are out there in the Badlands, and then you get a full moon happening with it too. I mean, this is just the kind of views that you get there. And if you get clouds, life is pretty good. If you get the right clouds, bring out your wide angle lens, you get these huge perspectives of the big sky. Big sky is not just for Montana, you know. Now, there is wildlife out there. Um, it's not a wildlife destination. I don't do a wildlife photo shoot there typically, but there's wildlife that you'll see. So it's nice to have, you know, be prepared for some stuff. So you get the bighorn sheep, you got bison. There's a bison and that green grass. They can graze on that stuff, no problem. Some more sheep, the little baby sheep, little chipmunk. This was from my 2005 trip. So this is a 20-year old digital photo now. I shot this with my very first digital SLR camera. Western meadowlark, you'll see them. They do their thing. Normally they're sitting on a fence post or a sign, so it was nice to see one sitting on an actual real live, you know, a real tree branch, even though it was a dead branch, because normally they're just on street signs and posts and stuff like that when you see um, when you see them. I saw a comment in the chat from Matt what the crowds are like when I go down there. When I go there, the crowds are pretty minimal. I go in the off-peak season. So when I've gone before in early June, there's nobody there. It's not even season yet. In fact, some of the restaurants aren't even open. Lately, I've been pushing my trips to mid to late September for two reasons. One is that the sunrise times are a little more civilized, and also you're past the Labor Day rush, so you just don't have the crowds. And by the way, the other thing though is when you go somewhere for sunrise, the only other people there will be other photographers, if that. So generally speaking, you're the only one walking in, and the other people start to come in as we're walking out typically. Here's little prairie dogs. There's a prairie dog colony there, town they call them. One year we saw some wild turkey just kind of on the side of the road. That was kind of cool. One year there was a toad. Now you wouldn't think that out there you would see amphibians, but in June in the rainy season, the pools fill up, little puddles, you know, ephemeral ponds fill up, and there will be toads out there. They usually go and dig in and hibernate for the rest of the year once it's the wet season's over. But this guy was kind of cool. I got down and photographed him. And then in the springtime, you can get the wildflowers as well. So that's late May through June into July, depending on the season. You'll get wildflowers. That's a prairie coneflower right here. This is a flower that I don't know what it is, but I like that it had some dewdrops on it. And you can see it's in this cracked mud. And that mud is not my friend. If you end up getting rain out there and you're out in the Badlands, this mud is so thick. It's like literally, it's clay. And when I say clay, it's like walking in plasticine on your boots. It just starts encasing your boots, and it's damn near impossible to scrape off because it's not regular mud. It's really thick clay. So later in the season, when it's not so rainy, it's a little bit kinder to go hiking out there. And there's that flower in the Badlands setting, little thistle. And this was a shot from one year we went, all this stuff was just going crazy. This again was from that early mid-June time frame out there. So just wildflowers absolutely everywhere. Now, if things are nice when you go, um, if you're lucky, you'll get some atmosphere, and that's the tricky part. You just never know, and that's why whenever I go there, I like to do 3, 4, sometimes 5 days because every day is going to be a little bit different. But if you can get the clouds in the right place, you can get some amazing shots. So this is right at sunrise. That first light is hitting those rocks in the back there, and the big sky is lit up. And so that was like, okay, let's get out the super wide angle lens. I was probably using like a 16 to 35 millimeter lens. Most of the time, the scenes are so big there that you really don't even need a super wide angle lens. But if you get these kinds of skies, boy, that 16 or 14 millimeter lens becomes your friend. And what it does is that it makes the sky look huge, but it also pushes back all those mountains into the distance, making them a small element in the scene there. Some more cool clouds. This one's probably a sunset. I can't remember. And then one year, I think this was 2014, I was there with a group of clients, and we got just crazy. We got fog. I have been there, many times. I've been to the Badlands, 10, 11 times. Never since or before have I seen fog there. And so this is one of those normal overlook places where you're getting all the distant views, but instead we switched to the longer telephoto lenses, like think 300, 400 millimeter in some cases, compressing all those rock formation layers together. And it's just spectacular. One of my clients got an amazing shot on this very day when we were out there with this. It was just so cool to see that. It took a long time to burn off, but the few shots we got were great. And then one year I went in October, and we had the freak early snowstorm. So there we were, freezing our collective butts off in the wind, set up at sunset, and there was snow in the Badlands. Not normally when I will go; it gets pretty harsh out there. But that year we got a snowstorm, and then by the next day it started warming up, and we were fine. Here's a thunderstorm early morning out at one of the viewpoints where we go. You can see that thunderstorm, the rain in the distance, the sun is sort of breaking through, and the foreground is this just incredible, rugged, eroded, just absolutely extraterrestrial-looking landscape. It's not extraterrestrial because it's really Earth. That's the cool thing. Here's a rock formation that I really like. A friend of mine, colleague of mine, told me about this one, and we go out there. It's in a totally different part of the park, and we went there for sunset. And these are what are called mammatus clouds, and they're generally when there's a bad thunderstorm. In fact, a lot of times they're associated with tornadoes and things. Now, we didn't have any tornadoes, thankfully, but the clouds, they just popped up in front of this rock formation, and oh my gosh, it was incredible. And it's just one of those lifetime shots. I've got lots of different shots from different years of this same rock formation, but never have I had those kind of clouds above it. It just was a completely interesting phenomenon. Here's some more early morning. This is sunrise, and we had these crazy thunderstorms rolling through. So these are the kinds of photos you can get from this place. Every time I go back, I find something different. People will talk about, well, don't you get bored of going to the same location every year? And I say no, because you just don't know what that landscape is going to deliver for you that year. You could get clouds, you could get bright blue skies, you could get wildlife, you could get anything. Just depending on the conditions and what you've got, you have to adapt your photography. Landscape photography is not all about just wide angle lenses and grand vistas, although we love those. There are a lot of things to explore in the Badlands with your camera. And what's happened over the years is that the more time I spent going back to the Badlands, the more I started to think about different ways to approach this landscape creatively because there's just so many different elements here. It's amazing. So, for example, um, real simple stuff. You've got the big landscapes, but you've also got light, shadow, and color. There's textures. Here's a black and white shot with the moon in the background. You can do abstracts there. Lots of different kinds of techniques. We got different kinds of light. This was really soft light in the morning. This was in 2011. This is in I think this is a early morning shot as that light, that faint pink was coming up. But this is an area called Conata Basin, and they have these yellow mounds. You see all the different colors in those rocks with that clay on top. You got the reds, the yellows, the orange, all kinds of stuff, and then this really interesting rock formations towering above it. Here's late afternoon light. And here's the absolute first light. You can just see that sun has just come over the horizon. We get out to this spot about 15 or 20 minutes before sunrise. We're at blue hour. And then that light hits. And depending on whether there's any clouds on the horizon, that sunlight, that really warm orange sun, just skims the surface. You can see that light is coming in almost parallel to the ground. The ground isn't really lit up. It's just the vertical surfaces that get lit up. More good rock formations, more textures. This was a sunset as well. And here's a case where there was a lot of clouds, but the sun just came through one spot and it lit just this one area, almost creating a natural, vignette effect almost where everything else is darkened. That was cool too. So you never know just what the light is going to offer you when you go to the Badlands. And all of it can be used to your advantage if you have some practice with your camera, which is why I go there. And you got your classic sunset silhouette shot as the sun is going down. Or this is actually, I think, a sunrise. But either way, you can get that sun coming up. And there's that prairie. This is the sun just going down. We were shooting a rock formation being front lit in the late afternoon, and then turn around, check your 6, because the next thing you know, you got that sun going down, popping up those little clouds and that big sky. It's so cool. So that's light, but there's also color. So here's that same spot in the spring or early summer, June, late spring, fully lush, green, nice clouds, soft light, makes for some amazing color. Different scenario, stronger light, late afternoon, that light's coming in and you can see how the side light is illuminating all these textures and giving them more relief than if it was just front lit. So the sun here is coming in from, I think it's coming in from the right-hand side. It's going down. And then this one is post. It's either pre or post sun. It's either before sunrise or after sunset. So the light is much softer. And I zoomed in and you get the details and all these striations, the red, the layers of the sedimentary deposits that were eroded to create the Badlands. And there's that same rock formation again, totally different time. We got the moon up there. I actually have a print of this one hanging in my house. I love this rock. And the way you shoot it is you get up real close with your wide-angle lens. That rock formation there is probably all of about 8 feet tall. It's not a big thing. But when you get down there with some forced perspective with a super wide lens, you get this look. And that rocks you see strewn around are like lava. So it's like volcanic rock. It's kind of fun. Here's one after sunset. So the sun is down. We're in blue hour. The sky is turning purple. The moon is up. And it's the illumination here is just that last glow of light. The sun is actually down. Your digital camera picks up this light. It's so great. I like this shot because the light was soft, but this leading line was created by, however the water was going through the scene. So I worked it to emphasize that line, that, looking for these scene elements to create natural leading lines to bring your eye from the foreground into the middle and into the rock formations as you go through. And then if the big skies aren't cooperating, there's other things you can do. You can go in for details. So this one, black and white, but I went for the texture. I went for these rocks through this little channel where it's not a stream or anything. It's a tiny thing. It's probably about 6 inches across, but that's where the water was flowing at some point, and those rocks were sitting there. And I decided to take out the color. Or you can get in really close, do some detail shots of these textures dotted with the little bits of vegetation that comes in here. Telephoto lenses are your best friend for looking for little mini scenes. So again, looking for the layers, looking for patterns, looking for interesting shapes, and figuring out how to frame them. That's all the challenge of landscape photography in a place like the Badlands. Some cool clouds there, and I like the foreground, had those leading lines in it. Okay, so then those are the things you look for, and then I also like to work through practicing creative techniques for landscape capture. So a lot of these will have to do with capture, but also processing, because you got a lot of time in the middle of the day between your sunrise early and your sunset late, where the light is just going to be overhead and unpleasant to download, review, process photos. So you can got monochrome, convert to black and white, get rid of the color, and make the scene about the shadow and the light and the texture. So all these are monochrome conversions. It's just about the light and the texture. And sometimes the light is such that everything looks kind of orange, like late in that golden hour can really not be the most attractive thing sometimes in the late afternoon, the Badlands. So getting rid of the color is a great way to just make your shot about the textures. Now, a lot of times when I'm out there, I'll do HDR capture, which simply stands for high dynamic range. All I'm doing is bracketing exposures between overexposed to underexposed to capture a wider range of tones than what my camera could do in a single frame. But when you put them together, you end up with tremendous color because you've got such a greater tone range than what your camera would capture otherwise. So here's an early morning shot where the sky, the foreground was so dark, the sky was bright. The camera couldn't capture either one of them in the same scene without either making the shadows too dark or the sky too bright. So combine them together and you can blend things together in post and get a better photo. Same thing here. There's a thunderstorm that popped up back in 2011 on one of my first workshops that I taught there. Shot into the sun. And then these rays appeared, these beams, the crepuscular rays, or the God beams as people like to call them. They came through and we were like, whoa, it had been raining on us, pouring. We were just sitting in our cars going, oh God, is this storm going to clear? And then when it cleared, it was absolutely amazing. Same thing here. Sun is coming up right over those rocks. But if I'm shooting into the sun, I've either got a completely black foreground and a nice sky, or I've got a completely blown out sky and a nice foreground. HDR capture allows me to put this together later on in post. And the key here was that because I knew I could do it and I was familiar with the technique, I didn't let the scene bother me. I just said, okay, I'll just bracket this and I'll figure it out later because I knew that I had that in my, I like to call it my digital bag of tricks. Same thing here. Shooting into the sun, those rays are caused by the lens itself, the aperture blades in the lens. So that's not something I added in post processing. They just show up in the image. Now, I also like to bring an infrared camera out there sometimes, and I've done some workshops in the Badlands specifically for infrared. So this is where you're capturing light that is beyond what your eye can actually see. We're going to go beyond the visible spectrum, and you can get some cool shots. You'll notice in this one, this I love this shot because of the road, but look at the vegetation. That's green vegetation. It's turning up almost white because the green vegetation reflects back infrared light that we cannot see. So when the camera picks it up, it's rendered by your camera as a light tone. And a lot of times we'll go with monochrome, but sometimes we'll add a little bit of color. It's not real color, but it's the color that sort of gets into your camera from this near infrared range. So there's a little bit of color there. And infrared does wonderful things with clouds. It creates tremendous contrast, almost if you were like using a yellow filter in the old black and white days. It just makes clouds just really pop out. You get that black sky. It's that Ansel Adams sky. Really cool stuff. And the cool thing about these spots is that almost every one of these spots, we were shooting from either a path, a boardwalk, or a paved path, or even just the side of the road. We weren't really hiking out into the wilderness to go find the shots. The shots are there for you. There's so many spots that you can just pull over and shoot in. It's fantastic, and it's very. I would say it's very low impact. I mean, you got to be able to carry your gear, of course, but it's not like you have to go hiking through 5 miles or something to find these spots. These spots are right there for you. I also really like long exposures. If you've followed me at all, you know this. And I'll probably do a webinar on long exposure pretty soon. It's on my list. But with long exposures, you're now doing something like, which I like to call stretching time. So these clouds were moving overhead, and they were moving not terribly slowly, but slow enough. So by doing this, I set up my camera with a dark filter, a neutral density filter, and this is a 54-second exposure. So almost a minute long. And what happens? The rocks are perfectly still, but those clouds move overhead, creating this dynamic and dramatic look that you can't get in a normal photograph without using this technique. Hey Andrea, no, I didn't see any ghosts in the infrared pictures. They don't show up. I think I need a different wavelength for that, and a Ghostbusters pack. This is a 130-second exposure, so just over 2 minutes long, and I did it with a wide-angle lens and a solid neutral density filter. And I framed it so that the Badlands, the rocks, are just the bottom, and this whole shot is really about the sky because that's what was happening here. And there's that day on the snow. It was cold and windy. I set up, this is a 30-second exposure. It was quite windy. Those clouds were moving pretty fast. So I didn't have to worry about crazy long exposure, which was good because I was freezing when I took the shot. But this was right off the side of the road, by the way. So not like I had hiked in there. So just want to leave. This is one of my clients from a few years ago. I'm going back to the Badlands September 23rd through the 27th of this year. Okay, and it's going to be from Wall, South Dakota. Let me bring back my screen here, my camera. And so This is a place that I have been to extensively. I know where to go. I know where to set you up for success. And in the in between times when we're not shooting, we work on our computers so that you can learn all these creative techniques like the HDR processing and stuff like that. So this is I'm doing a fine, what I call fine art landscape photography, where the idea is to go from initial capture in the raw state with the optimal exposure so that you're collecting the best possible image, and then taking it through the process to polish it into something that you will be absolutely thrilled to potentially print out and put on your wall. So that's the plan. Um, it's an amazing place. If you're interested in joining me, I keep these events very small. I think the maximum number of clients I will take is 8. Um, you can go and check out my website for where to go. Um, and I've got an article in my posts on this spot, so you can check it out there for sure. Um, I apologize if my mic was a little hot today. Okay, so I really appreciate everyone joining in. So if you're interested in this and you want to learn more, I do have a discount that is running through the 31st. There's an early bird discount for registration. So if that's a thing that you're interested in, this would be a great time to consider joining in. So if you got questions, feel free to leave a message me, and I can hook you up with all the relevant information to go and become spend 4 days as a real fine art landscape photographer doing things the professional way out in the South Dakota Badlands, where it's just us and maybe a few bison and some prairie dogs. So with that, I just want to thank everybody again for coming. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I appreciate all the support. This is my job. I'm self-employed. This is what I do. So so I really do appreciate it. And thanks for all those hearts in the chat too. I really do appreciate it, guys. It is really this is a cool place to be. So thanks for being on Substack. Thanks for joining me today, taking a little time out of your day. Stay safe out there, and I will see you again soon. Don't forget, I've got a live online class on macro photography coming up this Sunday. So check that out. I sent out a notice to my subscribers. It's an upcoming live on Substack, and if you join live, it's free to attend as long as you're a subscriber. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you get notified the next time that I do one of these lives. So thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate it, and have a great evening.